G'day everyone and welcome to Hayes Homestead. This episode we have proudly partnered with Reolink, but more on that later. If you've recently joined the channel, then let me bring you up to speed. At the moment we're currently taking what was once an overgrown patch of weeds and bramble and turning it into our veggie garden, composting bays and firewood storage area. We've just finished building the beds and filling half of them up, and we're now moving on to enclosing the area off to ensure that pests don't get into our produce. So, enjoy the show. In this episode we're going to start enclosing off the veggie garden as we work our way around. The first thing we need to do is get a timber frame in here for the pedestrian gate that's going on this side of the veggie garden, something wide enough for a wheelbarrow. So the first thing we really need to do is get a timber frame in between these two posts, so let's just start with that. So I countersunk the concrete bolts into the timber threshold piece, and then it won't interfere with any timber that we lay on top. So I think now just start building up the side lights, getting all of that framework on, and then we can, I'm thinking maybe paint it black, and we'll have some white accents, make it look a little bit bougie, a little bit pretty, and you know, make it look nice. But yeah, for now let's just get all the timber frame up and see if we've got enough time to paint it, but it's gonna look nice, I hope. So this is the first side light done, so rinse and repeat on the other side. It's nice and level, it's nice and square. So once we do the other side, we're going to put the piece of timber across the top called a spandrel. So that spandrel will be the last bit that braces the posts on both sides against the big thicker posts. Then that will be our basic framework done, and then I reckon probably paint that, and then tomorrow, once that's dry, we can put in the infill panels, the mesh, and all the other little bits and pieces that go on the rest of it. So yeah, it's coming together quite nicely, I think. All right, well, that's the basic frame up. We've got the header for the door, we've got the bits of bracing on where we're going to attach our mesh and our steel, our corrugated steel panels down here. So let's try and get this painted so tomorrow we can pretty much pick up where we left off, and when the panels are on we can start adding the little bits of trim and all the things that go on around the outside and just keep the pace of the project. But I'm pretty happy with how it's come out. It's going to look pretty awesome, I reckon. Well, long story short, I didn't finish painting the frame yesterday afternoon, so I came out this morning, I finished painting the top bits, I touched up any bits that I'd missed, and then after that, while that dried, I threw in a couple of posts, found a couple of bags of quickset. So we've only got a couple more posts to do in this run before we start sending it this way. So we'll just throw that in as and when. For now, we need to start putting some mesh in here, some mesh across the top here, and then we're going to put some corrugated steel bits in these bottom bits down here. So we have to get onto that, and then we can start building our door. We're building a door from scratch, so that's also going to take a bit of work. So let's get all this steel on, and then we can move on to the next bit. We've got the span across the top done, we've got the mesh on, we've got the steel panels on, so next thing to do, we'll build a gate. This morning I set about cutting all of the bits of timber for the gate. If you've watched any of my other content, you would have seen me cut timber 100 times already, so I'll save you the bother. So what we have here is we've got the stiles and then the rails, top, middle and bottom, and then internal stiles and internal rails, and then we've got some timber for a little timber infill panel at the bottom, and then at the top we'll have a mesh panel so you can look through the gate. And once we've got it all together, check that it's square, we're going to add some bracing in the bottom portion to ensure it doesn't sag, which is quite an important piece of structure in a gate. And with this being roughly 70mm thick once it's all finished, it's going to be quite robust, sturdy, but also quite heavy. So that bracing is quite important. Let's start throwing this together, and hopefully at the end of the day we've got enough time to paint it, and tomorrow we can start putting all the other little bits of timber into the gateway to close up any gaps and ensure that it's nice and tight. So we got work to do. Dry fit complete, everything seems to fit together pretty well, so let's just start gluing and screwing. While we leave that to dry, it's time to install our sophisticated new security system. If you've not heard of Reolink, Reolink are a leading provider of smart home security solutions, and they've just celebrated their 16th birthday. So to celebrate, they sent me the Atlas PT Ultra, which is an industry-leading 4K continuous recording battery camera. Loaded with features like Smart Active Track, 4K color night footage, 500 days of battery life, and 10 seconds of pre-recording. Most cameras, whenever something's walked into shot and it starts recording, you've missed half of it. Well, this actually has 10 seconds of pre-recording, so it means that you can capture the moment the subject comes into shot, so you never miss a detail. Now, of course, this camera comes with an app, which means using its advanced features and the cutting edge technology could not be easier. The playback is really easy to navigate. With motion detection, it means that you'll never miss a visitor. And on top of that, they have some cool features like the time-lapse feature, meaning that you can even catch some awesome sunrises. And with this camera connected to Wi-Fi, it means that you can check on it no matter where you are. Like when we went interstate this week, it meant that I could spy on the cows while I was half the country away, which can be pretty comforting. So a massive thank you to Reolink for sponsoring this video, and if you want to check out more details about the Atlas PT Ultra, head over to the link in the description below, and for all of our viewers, I have 5% off using my code Hayes Homestead 5, so follow the link in the description. And again, a massive thank you to Reolink. Well, this morning I went off to the city to go to the big green shed and pick up some supplies. I needed more mesh, I needed quick set so I can set more posts, I needed screws, I needed more hinges. So what with it being now the afternoon, one of the first things I really want to actually get done is I want to put some bracing across the top of the sort of gate frame on both sides to kind of add a bit of stiffness. It's a little bit wobbly and I didn't anticipate quite how heavy the door was going to be, so I think adding a bit of rigidity to it, making it a bit stiffer, will just ensure that the thing doesn't like move around whenever I open the gate. So with it being the afternoon, we'll try and get as much done as we can, and then after that we'll see about adding the gate hardware. We need to add in the jamb section into the gate to ensure that when it closes up there's no gaps. So let's just get into it and see how much we can get done, and then tomorrow maybe we'll wake up a bit earlier and try and really get at it, because I'd really like to get as much of this area enclosed as possible before I start moving on to other areas, because there's a few things on my list that I'd really like to get to in the next couple of videos, like the climbing planter boxes, and also a wood storage area is probably quite high on the priority, because I can't be cutting firewood once it gets too hot, and I want to be able to start stocking up firewood for next winter, because I'm sick of trying to cut firewood a la minute, as a chef would say, for winter burning. So yeah. We've got some big screws, we've got some big hinges. It's time to start getting the hinges on the door, getting that into the jamb, and then we can start putting in the latch hardware, getting all the jamb made up to make sure we've got enough coverage around the edge of the door, and start moving on to closing up this end of the veggie garden. Got 4 of these hinges, not so much because of the weight of the door, more so because I want the screw power into the frame. I've only got about 50 mil of timber to work with, So I want to just make sure that it doesn't put any extra stress on the fixings. So 16 screws, that should be enough, right? I mean, over engineered. I also want to point out that I'm not a carpenter, nor have I ever been a carpenter, and this is a very cowboy way of hanging a door. If I was doing it at my house, I'd probably use the proper brackets and everything and do it the right way. It works for this sort of scenario. So yeah, each to their own. Well, I guess now, moment of truth. Will it close? Please close. It does not.
Man, you are one pathetic loser. No offense.
Nah, none taken. There is a bow in the middle of this frame just here, and that's what's clipping it. Let's get the planer out. We'll plane a bit off the edge of this door. That's okay. I didn't realise this was a little bowed. No dramas. It's such a small amount as well. Oh, that's quite frustrating. It is what it is. Oh well. Now we fixed that up, let's get the latch hardware onto here so then it locks up. Then we can start putting the jamb on the outside and start closing up any of the gaps, because like I've mentioned like a million times, we want these gates to be as pest proof as we can make them. I also just want to mention something about the bracing in the bottom of the gate. When you build a gate, you want the bracing to run down to the bottom hinge, because that's where all the weight essentially goes. So you want the weight from the bottom hinge to push up into the middle of the door to stop basically the outside of the door sagging down. So you're building a gate, this bit of bracing here goes down to your hinge corner, not to the latch corner. So remember that. Let's get the latch on. They were bloody enormous. Fat little what's it? If you're squeamish, look away now. After putting the impact driver right through the end of my finger, I decided it was time to call it a day. After eyeballing this one, you can see I was pretty proud of myself for getting it bang on level first time. Is that 2 for 2? Sure is. Take a bow, Tobias. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we've dug a little border out around the edge of the fence, we've put in some timber edging, and then we've laid in some weed mat, and on top of that we put some galvanized mesh. This is to essentially stop things like rats mostly from digging underneath the edge of the fence, so they'll go right up to the edge of it and try and dig down. So we're going to fill it with some aggregate, and the mesh is there to essentially stop them from getting any further. I put the mesh on top of the weed mat, so they don't chew through the weed mat first, only to find the mesh, and that should stop any things from growing through and keep the border looking nice for as long as possible, I suppose. So let's go get the barrow, fill it up with some aggregate, and start filling this trench. Well, there you have it. We have almost finished one whole side of enclosing off the veggie garden to make sure that things don't get in and eat our stuff. And I mean, if I do say so myself, I think it's looking pretty nice. I like things to look a little bit polished without looking too rustic, and I kind of wanted it to match the chicken coop. But in the next episode, we're actually going to head round the other side of the veggie garden to start working on a little project there that I kind of need to tie in with the rest of the fencing. So let me show you what we're up to. So one thing we need to do is start enclosing this bit off. Vehicle access gates just here, we need to start thinking about those. There is something else that's a bit more pressing, because we don't want to start doing it when it starts getting too hot, is a structure over here. Let me show you. So as well as finishing the fences that go this way, right here where we are is going to be our new firewood storage area, because I'm a bit tired of having to chop firewood through the winter to try and burn, because our storage is just not enough for what we go through. So it's definitely time for an upgrade. We're going to make a really organized firewood storage area, snake proof, to make sure that we don't get any nasty danger noodle surprises. So that is actually quite a big project that's coming up, and one that I'm quite excited for, because it will free up some time for me in winter. So I really appreciate you watching, and thank you so much for your support. We really love your interaction with the channel. We love hearing from you, so please drop us a comment, because we really try to reply to everyone. But for now, I'll catch you in the next one. See you around. Again, a massive thank you to Reolink for sponsoring this video. So don't forget, head over to the link in the description and use our code Hayes Homestead 5 to get 5% off your Reolink camera